What happened next still plays on loop in my nightmares. Without warning, the officer grabbed my arm, throwing me off balance. My crutches clattered to the sidewalk, and I fell hard, my surgical ankle twisting. The pain was blinding. What the hell? I can't stand without my crutches. Quit resisting. I'm not resisting. I have a broken ankle. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Through tears of pain, I could see Mrs. Stevenson standing at the building entrance, arms crossed, watching with what looked like satisfaction. The officers yanked me up, ignoring my cries of pain. They patted me down roughly, finally finding my wallet. This your current address? Yes, like I told you. I've lived here for 3 years. They verified my ID with dispatch while I sat on the ground, unable to get up without my crutches, which they'd kicked several feet away. The pain in my ankle was unbearable, and I could feel the surgical site throbbing. I was certain they'd damaged something. Looks like you check out. Of course I check out. I told you I live here. They didn't help me up. One officer tossed my wallet onto my lap, and neither bothered to hand me my crutches. They simply walked back to their patrol car as I... My name is Ryan, and I never thought a broken ankle would lead to the most humiliating day of my life. I'd been living in the Spring Valley apartment complex for nearly 3 years. Never had any issues until Mrs. Stevenson moved in next door 6 months ago. From day one, something about me bothered her. She'd peek through her blinds whenever I passed by, clutch her purse tighter in the elevator, and once even asked the building manager if they ran background checks on everyone. I ignored it. That's what we do, right? Keep our heads down, don't make waves. But ignoring a problem doesn't make it go away. In fact, she only got worse as time went on. Our mail was delivered and kept in the apartment office where each apartment had its own slot. None of them were locked up, and it was on the honor system that people would only grab their own mail. Well, for weeks I noticed that I wasn't getting any mail, and I was curious why not, but figured that maybe I was just not getting anything. Until I received a call from my credit card company asking why I wasn't paying out my balance. I informed them that I hadn't gotten the bill, and they told me that they had indeed mailed it to me. The next day when I checked my mail slot, once again it was empty, and on a whim I checked the garbage can that was in the room, and sure enough, there were all sorts of letters that were addressed to me. Someone had thrown my mail away, and I could only assume that they had been doing so for some time as well. And of course, even though I couldn't prove it, I had a suspicion that it was Mrs. Stevenson that had been doing it. Then, there was the time that I ordered groceries delivered to my apartment since I was too busy and had no time to go down to the store. When I got the notification that they had been delivered to my apartment, I opened my door only to find Mrs. Stevenson going through the bags. Excuse me, but what do you think you're doing?
Oh, I'm just making sure that there wasn't anything illegal here. I saw on the news that drug dealers were using grocery delivery services to move their illegal goods.
Do you honestly think that I'm a drug dealer?
I don't know, maybe you are. People can never be too careful when it comes to people like you.
People like me? What does that mean?
As if you didn't know. I can't believe they would let someone like you buy into such a prestigious building.
She then walked away and was clearly holding something. I later found out that she had helped herself to a steak that I had bought. The nerve of her to accuse and think that I was a criminal, only for her to steal from me. It would be funny if it wasn't so incredibly annoying. 2 weeks ago, I slipped on some ice outside my job at the accounting firm and fractured my ankle. Surgery, pins, the works. I was stuck on crutches and pain medication, struggling just to get through basic daily tasks. That Thursday, I was returning from a doctor's appointment. The taxi dropped me off in front of our building, and I was slowly making my way to the entrance, my crutches digging into my armpits with each painful step. I didn't even see the police car pull up until I heard the doors slam. "Sir, stop right there." "Excuse me?" 2 officers approached me. One tall and lanky, the other stocky with mirrored sunglasses that made it impossible to see his eyes. "We received a report of a suspicious person attempting to enter the building. I live here, apartment 304. I'm just coming back from my doctor's appointment." I shifted my weight, the crutches digging deeper into my underarms. The pain medication was wearing off, and standing still was becoming excruciating. "Do you have any identification?" "In my back pocket. But I can't exactly reach it right now. I'll need to check that ID." What happened next still plays on loop in my nightmares. Without warning, the officer grabbed my arm, throwing me off balance. My crutches clattered to the sidewalk, and I fell hard, my surgical ankle twisting. The pain was blinding. What the hell? I can't stand without my crutches. Quit resisting. I'm not resisting. I have a broken ankle. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Through tears of pain, I could see Mrs. Stevenson standing at the building entrance, arms crossed, watching with what looked like satisfaction. The officers yanked me up, ignoring my cries of pain. They patted me down roughly, finally finding my wallet. This your current address? Yes, like I told you. I've lived here for 3 years. They verified my ID with dispatch while I sat on the ground, unable to get up without my crutches, which they'd kicked several feet away. The pain in my ankle was unbearable, and I could feel the surgical site throbbing. I was certain they'd damaged something. Looks like you check out. Of course I check out. I told you I live here. They didn't help me up. One officer tossed my wallet onto my lap, and neither bothered to hand me my crutches. They simply walked back to their patrol car as I dragged myself across the concrete to retrieve them. Mrs. Stevenson had disappeared inside. As I finally managed to stand up again, I saw several neighbors watching from the lobby, but no one had stepped forward to help. The humiliation burned worse than the pain. Back in my apartment, I inspected my ankle. The surgical site was bleeding, and the next day, my doctor confirmed that 2 of the pins had shifted. I would need another procedure, more time off work, more medical bills. And for what? Because my neighbor couldn't handle seeing a black man in her building? Something inside me broke that day. I was done turning the other cheek. First things first, I needed to document everything. I requested the police report and the 911 call. The call was illuminating. 911, what's your emergency?
There's a man trying to break into our building. He's using some kind of tool on the lock.
Can you describe this person?
He's a large black man, very intimidating. I think he's on drugs or something. He's walking funny. Please send someone quickly.
Walking funny, because of my crutches. The tool was probably my key. The police report was equally infuriating. It claimed I was uncooperative and lost balance during questioning. No mention of them knocking away my crutches or the fact that I told them repeatedly about my broken ankle. I consulted with a lawyer who specialized in civil rights cases. Her name was Janelle, and she didn't mince words.
What happened to you was textbook excessive force and racial profiling. We have a solid case against both the police department and potentially your neighbor for filing a false report.
I want to pursue this, all the way. The lawsuit was just the beginning. I also installed a small camera outside my apartment door, covering both my entrance and Mrs. Stevenson's. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, the camera caught Mrs. Stevenson placing a small baggie of what looked like marijuana by my welcome mat, then knocking on my door and hurrying back to her apartment. I didn't answer. Instead, when I knew that she was gone, I stepped outside, picked up the baggie using a glove, and threw it down the trash chute. I really didn't understand what she was trying to do, until several minutes later, a police officer came to my door with a drug-sniffing dog and insisted I allow them into my apartment. Reluctantly, I did so, and when they found nothing, they left. Later, I saved the footage of her planting evidence along with the illegal search and added them to my growing file. Next, I reached out to other residents in the building through our community Facebook group, asking if anyone else had experienced concerning encounters with neighbors or police. The responses were eye-opening. 2 other black residents had stories about Mrs. Stevenson calling the police on them. One Middle Eastern family had been reported for suspicious cooking smells. I organized a meeting in the building's community room. 15 residents showed up, and we formed the Spring Valley Tenant Association. Our first order of business? Drafting a formal complaint against Mrs. Stevenson to the property management company, complete with signed statements and video evidence. Meanwhile, my medical condition had worsened. The second surgery was more extensive than the first, and my doctor documented that the additional damage was consistent with trauma sustained after the initial surgery. Ryan, I have to ask, what happened? These new injuries aren't from normal walking on crutches. I was knocked down during a police encounter. They didn't believe I lived in my building. Jesus, do you mind if I include detailed documentation in your file? This kind of thing shouldn't happen to anyone. Please do. Document everything. 3 weeks later, the local news picked up the story. I hadn't planned on going public, but when a reporter reached out through my lawyer, I decided it was time. The headline read, "Local accountant on crutches manhandled by police after neighbor's false report." The body camera footage, which my lawyer had obtained through discovery, was damning. You could clearly hear me explaining about my ankle, see the officers ignoring my medical condition, and watch as they knocked away my crutches. The police department's public relations team went into overdrive. They claimed that they were taking these allegations very seriously and were conducting a thorough internal investigation. But it was too late. The footage had gone viral. Community activists organized a protest outside the police station. The mayor called for a review of police procedures regarding citizens with disabilities. Mrs. Stevenson tried to duck the spotlight, but her history of questionable 911 calls was now public record. The property management company issued her a formal warning about harassment, and neighbors stopped acknowledging her in the hallways. 6 months later, the lawsuit was settled. The police department agreed to a substantial financial settlement, which made paying for my medical bills a breeze, mandatory retraining for all officers on interacting with disabled individuals, and the implementation of new protocols for responding to suspicious person reports. The 2 officers were suspended without pay and required to complete extensive sensitivity training. To be honest, they were lucky that they weren't fired, and personally, I think that they should have been. As for Mrs. Stevenson, the evidence of her planting drugs at my door was the final straw. She was evicted for violating the terms of her lease regarding harassment and illegal activities. I heard she moved to another city, where presumably she'd have to find new neighbors to terrorize. Friends that I have there inform me that she lives in a very dangerous part of town, in a building that is known for break-ins. I have no doubt that she feels very unsafe there, and good riddance. She deserves everything that she gets. I later uploaded a YouTube video titled, "My Racist Neighbor Got Me Hospitalized," using only public evidence. It went viral, gaining millions of views. After that, she started receiving death threats, and her windows were smashed every few days. Her landlord, fearing more damage to the property, issued her an eviction notice. But before she could move out, thieves broke into her home, beat her up, broke her nose, and spray painted across her living room wall. No place for racism in the USA. My ankle eventually healed, though I still walk with a slight limp, a permanent reminder of that day. But something else changed too. I found my voice. The tenant association became a powerful force in the building, addressing everything from security concerns to maintenance issues. I still think about what happened sometimes, how quickly my humanity was stripped away because of one woman's racism and 2 officers' indifference. How easily it could have gone even worse. People tell me I got justice, that my revenge was complete. The settlement, the policy changes, the officer's punishment, Mrs. Stevenson's eviction, it all looks like victory on paper. I used to believe that keeping your head down was the safest way to move through the world. That if I was polite enough, successful enough, respectable enough, I'd be treated with decency. I know better now. My revenge wasn't in the lawsuit or the public humiliation of those who wronged me. My revenge is waking up every day and refusing to be invisible. If you don't subscribe in the next 5 seconds, absolutely nothing will happen. But wouldn't it be cooler if you did?